Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 393, Gwenaëlle, My Little Sister. Alaric let out a smile as he looked at the bustling North Pine town. Is that your hometown, Your Highness? Matilda didn't seem to be impressed. After seeing the beautiful Birming Island and the magnificent cities in the west, she felt that North Pine town was quite ordinary. Alaric nodded, not minding her reaction. That's right. It only started as a small village with dozens of families a few years ago. I am proud of what it has become. Looking at his peaceful smile, Matilda was surprised. Ever since they first met, she had never seen Alaric show such pure and genuine emotion. That is where you are going to live from now on. Alaric pointed at the estate, which was at the prime location of the town. It wasn't as grandiose as House Jamina's estate, and it couldn't even compare to the properties of some Western lords. However, the estate possessed something that those territories lacked: vitality and liveliness. From above, they could see the stern-faced guards monitoring the estate's security with utmost seriousness. They saw the servants happily doing their tasks with no signs of being forced. They could also see the innocent children playing with their families near their homes. Suddenly Zephyr descended in front of the main mansion of the estate, where a large crowd had already gathered to welcome them. Whoosh! I'm back, everyone, greeted Alaric as he jumped off Zephyr's back. It was only here that he could feel at peace. Here he wasn't the Prince of Estania, but simply a minor noble's son. Only in this place could he temporarily forget his responsibilities as an heir to the throne. Welcome back, Your Highness. The servants and the guards greeted him excitedly. I'm glad to see you safe, my son. Jade Christine looked visibly relieved to see him in good shape. She knew how brutal the battle in the west was, so she had always been worried about his safety. Now that she had seen her son unharmed, her worries disappeared. It's good that you are back, son. Lucas smiled as he patted his shoulder. It looked like he had a lot to say, but he held back since there were many people around. Your Highness, Elena called out softly. Alaric turned his head to her. She had grown noticeably more mature. Her fair skin had grown more tanned, and Alaric, with his sharp eyesight, could see the calluses on her hands. It seems like she had been training diligently while I was gone. She once mentioned that she was learning swordsmanship from Aaliyah. He thought that she would lose interest after some time, but looking at her now, it looked like he had underestimated her resolve. You worked hard, Elena. Alaric was about to pat her head, but his hand froze in midair. She is not a kid anymore. I should treat her. While he was hesitating, Elena suddenly stepped forward and grabbed his hand. I don't mind if it's you, Your Highness. She beamed at him. Hearing this, Alaric no longer hesitated. With a smile, he patted her head. I am proud of your growth, Elena. Yua! Yua! A baby's cry suddenly drifted into his ears. Alaric turned his head and saw a newborn child in Maria's arms, bawling while waving her little arms. Is she my... He approached Maria while keeping his eyes on the baby. Maria nodded with a motherly smile. Amen. Her name is Gwenaëlle Silversword. Do you want to hold her? She asked while looking at her son. Gwenaëlle? My sister. Alaric felt a wave of joy. Can I? Of course. Maria chuckled as she carefully handed the baby to him. Alaric was a bit flustered. He had no experience in holding a baby, so he was very careful in his actions. He even gathered mana into his arms so he could react immediately in case the baby would fall. The baby stopped crying as soon as he held her in his arms. She then looked at Alaric with her beautiful silver eyes, which she had inherited from Lucas. Abubu abubuha. The baby mumbled. Alaric's heart melted, his face breaking into an affectionate smile. Gwenaëlle, my lovely little sister. He poked her bulging cheeks, which made the baby giggle. Matilda couldn't believe what she was seeing. Was this still the cold-faced and stern prince that she had known? She was dumbfounded. Felt like she was looking at another person. So he has this side of him too. She mumbled. Uncle, is that your sister? A childish voice suddenly drifted into everyone's ears. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the little girl who had spoken. It was Dudu. Out of nowhere, she appeared beside Alaric, looking at the baby in his arms with a gaze filled with curiosity. Dudu, don't be rude to His Highness. Riwin, her grandfather, sweated bullets, his heart nearly leaping out of his chest. Riwin nervously bowed his head. Please forgive my granddaughter's rudeness. She doesn't understand any. Chuckling, Lucas approached him and patted the old man's shoulder. You don't have to apologize, sir. Your granddaughter is such an adorable child. Pardon me? Riwin lifted his head and looked at him with surprise. This must be Lucas Silversword, the Shield of the North. It's all right, Sir Rewin. Smiling lightly, Alaric reassured the old man and gestured at him not to worry. He then turned his head towards Dudu and crouched with the baby still in his arms. You are right, Dudu. This is Gwenaëlle, my little sister. Dudu squinted her eyes as if to observe the baby. She then pointed at the baby's face and said, Uncle, your sister's face is fat just like mine. Hearing this, Alaric couldn't help but laugh. Everyone also laughed at her innocent words. Meanwhile, her grandfather Rewin was absolutely terrified that he almost fainted. Dudu, you are older than Gwenaëlle, so you will be her older sister. As her older sister, you must keep her safe, okay? Alaric stared at Dudu with all seriousness as if he were giving her an important task. Hearing this, Dudu's eyes twinkled. She then waved her chubby fists while puffing her cheeks. Don't worry, Uncle. I will protect her from bad people. Good. Alaric grinned. Chapter 394. Ashamed. Lucas's gaze alternated between Alaric and Dudu. He had a lot of questions, but he refrained from asking. He knew that Alaric would tell him everything about her privately. You should head inside first. We have already told the servants to prepare a feast. Maria spoke and gestured for him to enter the mansion. All right. Alaric nodded and handed the baby back to her. A moment later, they entered the main mansion and headed straight to the main hall while waiting for their food. Where is Hershey? I don't see her here. Alaric looked around searching for his wife's figure, but she was nowhere to be found. She went to Vale for an errand. Your father sent his subordinates to protect her in secret, so you don't have to worry about her safety. Jade Christine replied. I already sent a messenger bird to inform her about your return. She should be hurrying over by now. She added. I see. That's good. Alaric nodded, grateful for their meticulous effort to ensure his wife's safety. They asked him about his experiences in the western region, but they tacitly agreed not to mention anything about the war. They knew that it was a sensitive topic that should only be discussed privately. Alaric told them about the places he had visited. He also told them about the new people he had met. He then took the chance to introduce Rewin and the two women he had brought. Everyone didn't react much when he introduced Rewin, but they sent him weird looks when he introduced the two ladies. It was especially the case for Elena, who was visibly glaring at him. Oh right, I almost forgot. Lucas suddenly remembered something important. He looked at Alaric and said, the Greenwood Kingdom and the barbarian tribes decided to cooperate recently. Both sides expressed their willingness to work together, but they want you to be there during the formal discussions of their cooperation. Hearing this, Alaric was taken aback. This didn't happen in his past life. In fact, there was even a time when the barbarian tribes and the elves were at war. This change, he was certain that this had something to do with him. The Greenwood Kingdom was no longer living in fear since all the threats surrounding their kingdom had been eliminated. Meanwhile, the barbarian tribes, which was supposed to be hostile to Estania, were now cooperating with House Silversword. All right, I will visit them soon. Alaric nodded. He could make some time for them. He wanted to witness the cooperation between the two forces, but there was also another matter. He wanted to see Ivana again. Thinking about her, Alaric subconsciously smiled. Good. I will also go with you when the time comes. Lucas chuckled, his eyes revealing a trace of anticipation. Alaric looked at his father in surprise. Aren't you busy with the matters here? Lucas had so many things to settle, especially after Alaric had been revealed to be of imperial blood. Many aristocrats and powerful martial houses expressed their desire to work with them, leading to an increase in Lucas's workload. If it weren't for his wives and the others helping him with administrative tasks, he wouldn't even have the time to sleep. Lucas shook his head. The matters here can wait. He paused for a moment before he continued. I want to see an old friend of mine. Alaric and the others became curious when they heard this. Looking at their curious faces, Lucas chuckled. There's no harm in telling you. He adjusted his posture and grabbed his teacup. He then took a light sip before he spoke. More than 2 decades ago, during the war against the barbarian tribes, I met an eccentric barbarian warrior. He was a transcendent knight just like me. He was also the chief of a medium-sized tribe called the Storm Elephant Tribe. We were enemies when we first met. We clashed blades. Lucas chuckled as he recalled those memories. I forgot how it happened, but we suddenly became tired of the fighting. It was also because of him that we reached an agreement with the barbarian tribes to stop the war. Lucas ended the story and smiled faintly. I don't remember you talking about this person. Maria raised an eyebrow. Lucas sighed and shook his head. There were some things that happened at that time that I don't wish to remember. Hearing this, everyone became silent. At this moment, a series of hurried footsteps suddenly drifted into their ears. Turning their heads, they saw Hershey rushing towards them while holding back her tears. You are finally back. I thought I wouldn't see you for a long time. Hershey dove into Alaric's arms. Feeling her fragile body, Alaric felt a wave of guilt. He wrapped his arms around her and spoke. Hershey, His words were stuck in his throat. You don't need to tell me. As long as you are safe, that's more than enough. Hershey lifted her head and smiled at him, her eyes brimming with boundless love. I have wronged you. Alaric sighed, feeling ashamed of himself. Seeing him look away from her, Hershey grabbed his hands. Alaric, look at me. While the two were immersed in their reunion, Lucas sent a signal to everyone telling them to leave and give the couple some space. Soon only Hershey and Alaric remained. Alaric stared, his eyes shaking with remorse. Hershey, is it because of those women? Hershey smiled, as if aware of what this was all about. Alaric raised his eyebrows like a startled cat. How did you? Hershey chuckled and shook her head. You are so easy to read. I wouldn't say that I'm not angry, but things had already happened. We couldn't change it anymore, but you have to promise me that you will consult me first the next time this happens. Looking at his wife, Alaric knew that she was only hiding her sorrow. Alaric could see her shoulders visibly shaking. I am worse than an animal. For the sake of power, I promise you, he responded, squeezing out a forced smile. Chapter 395, Elven Emissary. Alaric stayed in the estate for the next 5 days to catch up with his family and the people of the household. He also didn't miss his daily missions. He even went to tutor Elena, who was eager to learn swordsmanship from him. At this moment, Alaric had just completed his 5th daily mission. He checked his attributes and smiled faintly upon seeing his progress. Although slow, the slight increase still made him happy. Uncle! An excited voice drifted into his ears. Who was it other than the little troublemaker Dudu? Turning his head, Alaric saw Dudu dressed in her new pink dress, happily skipping towards him. Dudu. Alaric smiled as he lifted the little girl. Hee. The little girl giggled, her face filled with joy. Alaric put her down and asked while pinching her cheeks. How was your first day with your teacher? Did you learn a lot from her? Dudu swatted away his sweaty hand and replied with a pout. I don't like her. Why? She is your teacher. That's not good to say. Dudu crossed her arms and puffed her cheeks. She said that Dudu must walk and sit properly to be a graceful lady. The teacher made me do this and that. There were so many things to remember, but I forgot them all. Hearing her complain, Alaric chuckled and gently rubbed her head. Dudu, all ladies must learn this. If you want to be a good older sister for Gwenaëlle, you must be patient and learn how to behave properly. Do you understand? Dudu looked displeased, but she still obediently nodded her head. Okay. Growl. A soft growl suddenly echoed from Dudu's stomach. The little girl rubbed her tummy and mumbled pitifully. Uncle, I'm hungry. That's not good. Dudu must eat something so that your tummy won't hurt. Let's go get something to eat. Alaric grabbed her chubby hand. I want a big piece of meat. The little glutton eagerly followed with small but quick steps. In the kitchen, they encountered Matilda, who was receiving servant training from Elena. Alaric's gaze was complicated, but he still greeted them. How is Matilda's training going? He casually inquired while helping Dudu take her seat. Elena sensed the awkward atmosphere, but she still replied. She is doing well, Your Highness. Although a little bit clumsy sometimes, she is a quick learner. With a month of training, I'm sure that she will master everything. Alaric nodded and waved his hand. That's good. You two continue with your tasks. Elena and Matilda bowed to him before they left. Looking at Matilda's figure, Alaric sighed. He had never touched her in the past 5 days. Her lustful cauldron trait made it difficult to avoid the temptation, but he managed to stop himself upon remembering his conversation with Hershey. Alaric pulled his eyes away and shook off the distracting thoughts. He then asked for some freshly grilled meat from the servants and helped Dudu cut the meat into smaller pieces before giving it to her. Here's your food, Dudu. Meat! Meat! Drooling, the little girl clapped her hands excitedly. While he was watching her eat, a warrior suddenly came to his side and whispered into his ear. Your Highness, the elves have sent an emissary to discuss something important. He is already in Lord Lucas's study. Hearing this, Alaric raised an eyebrow. That was quick. He nodded to the warrior. I will be there. Stay here with Dudu and give her more food if she asks for it. The warrior acknowledged the command with a salute. Dudu, I need to go somewhere. If you want more, just ask your uncle to get you more. He will get it for you. Alaric rubbed the girl's head. Dudu nodded. Okay. Inside Lucas's study. How have you been, my lord? Neo smiled as he removed the hood that covered his face. Lucas gestured at him to drink the freshly brewed tea as he replied with a smile. I feel great. The tea from your kingdom made me feel better. Cured me of my recurring headaches. Neo took a light sip of tea and chuckled at his words. I'm glad that you liked it. I will send you more the next time I visit. That sounds good. The two exchanged pleasantries before they went into the main topic. So to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Lucas asked, his expression turning serious. Neo put down the teacup and responded with a frown. We are allies, so I won't keep it from you, my lord. The reason why we are willing to cooperate with the barbarian tribes is because we recently spotted a growing monster colony over 300 miles from our kingdom. And this isn't just a regular monster colony like the ones we destroyed before. Lucas's expression darkened upon hearing this. Neo continued in a grim voice. According to our scouts, the colony is jointly built by 3 types of monsters: goblins, orcs, and ogres. They now number approximately 70,000 and their numbers are still growing. They even have ogres. Lucas exhaled a deep breath. Orcs were already troublesome, but ogres were way worse. A normal orc warrior was about 3 meters tall, while the average ogre was double that. Neo nodded. They are far from our kingdom, but we can't exclude the possibility of them invading us. We have reached out to the barbarian tribes, but those sand dwellers are quite stubborn. We might need your help in the coming meeting with the various barbarian chieftains. Neo lowered his head, his tone filled with helplessness. Please lift your head, Sir Neo. As your ally, we will definitely help you. Knock. 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 A series of knocks suddenly interrupted their conversation. Hearing this, Lucas said, "You may enter. The door is unlocked." Alaric pushed the door open and entered the room. Sir Neo. He was taken aback when he saw that the emissary was Neo. This guy was Ivana's closest confidant. He was a mentor and like a second father to her. It has been a while, Lord Alaric. Oh, please pardon me. It's your highness now. Neo stood up to greet him. Chapter 396. Lucas's Secret Force. Alaric exchanged pleasantries with Neo before he took his seat. I heard that the Greenwood Kingdom is planning to cooperate with the barbarian tribes. Is your visit here related to that, Sir Neo? Alaric probed. Neo nodded. That's right. I have already told Lord Lucas about the reason behind this, but I will repeat it for you. His face suddenly turned serious. Sensing the tension, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and listened carefully. Neo told him about the presence of a new monster colony, and the Elven Kingdom's fear that the said colony might come to attack them. Hearing this, Alaric finally understood why the obstinate elves would choose to ally with the barbarian tribes. So there is another monster colony. Alaric muttered as he subconsciously released a burst of killing intent. Goblins, orcs, and ogres. Neo and Lucas, with their strong senses, felt the trace of killing intent he briefly exuded. Please tell us what we need to do, Sir Neo. As your ally, House Silversword is willing to support you. Alaric stared deeply at Neo. Neo smiled at his words. I know we can trust you. The chieftains of various barbarian tribes will visit our kingdom soon, but His Majesty is worried that the discussions might not go well, so he wanted you and Lord Lucas to attend the meeting with the barbarian chieftains. That won't be a problem. Just give us the date and we will be there ahead of time. Alaric readily agreed. I will thank you in advance. Neo was moved beyond words. The trio chatted for a while about other matters before Neo asked to be excused. I still have a lot of things to do in the kingdom, so I hope that you will forgive me for not being able to stay here for long. You don't need to worry about us, Sir Neo. Your matters must be prioritized. Lucas smiled and gestured to him that it was fine. Neo nodded gratefully. Once I return, I will send our elven warriors to wait for you at the place where we usually do our trade. They will escort you to our kingdom. You don't need to trouble yourself. We can go to your kingdom by ourselves. We are already familiar with the route anyway. Lucas wanted to reject his offer, but Neo insisted. This is something that we must do. How can we let you travel by yourselves? In that case, we will gladly take your offer. Lucas relented with a helpless smile. Neo left immediately after delivering the message. Lucas and Alaric wanted him to stay, but they knew that things were urgent in the Elven Kingdom, so the father and son didn't insist on making him stay. After sending him off, Lucas and Alaric went to the main hall to continue their conversation. What do you think, son? If the barbarian chieftains and the leadership of the Elven Kingdom decide to attack the monster colony, should we gather the northern forces to help them? Lucas asked. Alaric rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. According to Neo, the monster colony was still growing, and if it was left alone, it might grow exponentially enough to threaten the destruction of the Elven Kingdom. This means that they would need as many soldiers as they could to eliminate this threat. However, there was a problem. He already had an agreement with Giovanni that he would gather the northern forces and send them to the western region in preparation for their invasion against Haroun. After about half a minute of silence, Alaric opened his mouth. The bulk of our troops are currently stationed in Birming Island. As for gathering the northern forces, that will be difficult since we need to send them to the western region. Lucas nodded. He was already aware of the agreement between Alaric and Giovanni. We still have Mom's troops and your personal troops, Dad. We can bring them with us if necessary. Alaric added. Lucas had nurtured a secret force that even Alaric had never seen before. He would sometimes see one or two giving Lucas reports, but he had no idea how many warriors his father had secretly trained. Even in his past life, he had never met Lucas' secret force. Lucas leaned on his seat and crossed his arms, seemingly in deep thought. With a soft sigh, Lucas said, Fine, but don't expect too much. There are only about 100 of them. To be precise, 99 elite knights and 1 transcendent knight. Hearing this, Alaric was stunned. You have nurtured that many elites? Lucas chuckled upon seeing his shocked face. Think about it. Why do you think our household was so tight in finances years ago? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. It's not because our family is poor but because most of our resources are spent on them, Lucas added. What? Alaric was startled. He finally realized why their past expenses were so weird. It turned out that there was this kind of secret. I initially planned to give them to you once you inherit my position, but it seems like I have to reveal them sooner. Lucas smiled helplessly. You were preparing that secret force for me? Alaric stared at his father, his eyes shaking with intense emotion. Of course. Lucas nodded. You have the blood of the imperial family running through your veins. You will need your own force to survive their political schemes. However, you suddenly decided to establish your own force, and you even advanced a few stages in just a short time. Alaric could see the proud look in his father's face. You have grown into a capable man without needing my help, son. I am proud of you. Lucas expressed the words he had been keeping for some time. Hearing this, Alaric smiled and shook his head. I wouldn't have achieved this without your support, Dad. Anyway, about that secret force. Lucas sent him an exasperated look. You are that eager to see them? Fine. Follow me. Chapter 397. Bastian's Identity. The father and son stepped out of the mansion. Surprisingly, Lucas brought another person with them. It was Bastian, the household's butler. He looked like someone in his 50s with graying hair and a surprisingly fit body for his age. He also possessed the distinguishing features of someone of Veronican descent, a pair of monolid eyes. Looking at the gentle-looking butler, Alaric realized that he still hadn't used his appraisal on him. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes. No. A trace of anticipation flashed in his eyes as he clicked. Yes. Bastian Benados, Elite Knight, EXP. 988/1000. Potential A. Traits: Calligraphy, S. Military Instructor, S. Horseback Riding, A. Spear Mastery, A. Swordsmanship, A. Archery, A. Assassination, A. Hunting, A. Information Gathering, A. Quick Learner, A. Housework, A. Shield Mastery, B. Dagger Mastery, B. Tracking, B. Walking Encyclopedia, B. First Aid, C. Strength, 249. Stamina, 242. Agility, 244. Vitality, 233. Endurance, 250. Mana, 230. What? There is actually someone this versatile in the household. Alaric couldn't believe his eyes. Most of Bastian's traits were highly rated, with the lowest being crank. He also possessed 2 serrated traits, a level which he had only seen in a few individuals. The most shocking thing was Bastian's attributes. From what he remembered, 250 was the normal maximum stats for elite knights. Some of his attributes were even higher than Fredrin's, who was about to advance to the transcendent realm. He had overlooked Bastian's abilities because he had never seen him fight before. Who would have thought that he was actually a warrior on the same level as Fredrin? Sensing his unusual gaze, Bastian smiled amicably at him. Is there anything wrong, Your Highness? His voice reminded him of their kind-hearted old gardener who couldn't even kill an insect. Just as Alaric was about to respond, Lucas's voice suddenly drifted over. What are you two waiting for? Let's go. Hearing this, Alaric gave Bastian a nod before he jumped onto his horse. Bastian quickly followed suit and jumped onto his horse. Riding their horses, the trio soon left the estate under the curious gazes of the servants and warriors. Where are we headed, Dad? Alaric asked while looking at his father's face. Lucas glanced at him and replied with a mysterious smile. To a town called Ubeck. I haven't taken you there before, but I think you have already heard of it. Ubeck. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and recollected his thoughts. He had indeed heard of Ubeck, but he didn't know much about the town. He only knew that it was a town known for having a lot of hunters. It took them over an hour to reach their destination. They could have ridden Zephyr to get here faster, but it seemed like Lucas didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. Looking at the town surrounded by sturdy brick walls, Alaric narrowed his eyes. Ubeck was a lot bigger than he had imagined. He estimated that it was probably 2 to 3 times larger than North Pinetown. At the entrance, they saw a team of about a dozen guards warily staring at them. At this moment, Lucas turned his head and called out indifferently. Bastian. The old butler understood his intentions. He unrolled his right sleeve, revealing an arm that was covered with scars. There was also a unique shield tattoo on his wrist that looked like a symbol of some kind of organization. Alaric, who was watching this, was stunned. That tattoo and those scars. Why do they seem so familiar? Suddenly he recalled the image of another transcendent knight in his past life. He was a fierce warrior who led a group of heavy cavalrymen. No one knew his real name and people only called him the Black Knight. This was because he wore a full set of black armor with a blood-red cape on his back. Together with the 100-man heavy cavalry unit, everyone in the Crown Prince's faction respectfully called them the Undaunted Heavy Cavalry Unit. The name was something they had earned for the countless dangerous battles they had fought. No wonder he suddenly disappeared when my father died. I thought he had been killed by my uncle, but it seems like something else had happened. Now that he had remembered this, he felt like he had solved a mystery. It was as if something had clicked within him. Thinking back, the undaunted heavy cavalry unit had always been with him in every battle. Whenever Alaric's troops were in dangerous situations, the Black Knight together with his heavy cavalrymen would suddenly appear to save them. At that time he thought that it was just a coincidence. So it was you all along, Bastian. You were the Black Knight, the commander of the undaunted heavy cavalry unit. Now another question flashed in his mind. Why did Bastian hide his identity from him? While Alaric was immersed in his thoughts, Bastian revealed his shield tattoo to one of the guards. Bring Einar here, Bastian spoke in a stern voice which was completely different from his usual character. The particular guard seemed to be startled and repeatedly bowed to Bastian, which made the other guards shocked. However, they didn't dare ask anything. They felt that the three visitors had significant status based on their clothes. Meanwhile, Alaric seemed to have understood something. I understand now. My father's death must have been a big blow to Bastian, so he chose to leave out of shame and decided to protect me in secret instead. This was only a guess on his part, but it was the most likely explanation for Bastian's sudden disappearance in his past life. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but give the old butler a deep look. One of the guards suddenly approached them and nervously asked, his voice shaking. My lords, may I know from which house you hail from? Bastian turned his head to Lucas as if asking him whether they should disclose their identity. Lucas nodded his head. After getting his lord's answer, Bastian responded to the guard. We are from House Silversword. Chapter 398. Undaunted Heavy Cavalry Unit. H House. The guard almost blurted it out of shock, but he quickly shut his mouth when he saw Bastian giving him a shushing gesture. He cleared his throat nervously. Please pardon our offense, my lords. Bastian waved his hand dismissively. Don't mind us. We are only here to see someone. Remember not to spread rumors about our arrival. He added in a severe tone. The guard nodded, turned around, and relayed Bastian's words to his comrades. Once the guards were informed of their identity, they no longer dared to disturb them and just allowed them to enter the town. The trio waited near the entrance, but they didn't have to wait for long. In about 15 minutes, the guard who was sent to get someone came back with a rigid-faced, middle-aged man dressed in shabby linen clothes. My lord. The middle-aged man bowed his head to Lucas before giving Bastian a nod of greeting. He then turned his head to Alaric and frowned. This gentleman is? Bastian sent him a stern look and immediately reprimanded him. How dare you be rude to his highness? Hearing this, Einar was stunned. Alaric was wearing a hood, so he could clearly see his face. Upon realizing his mistake, Einar lowered his head. I apologize for not recognizing your highness. Seeing this, middle-aged man confirmed his guess. This man was Einar Berestein. In his past life, Einar was the deputy commander of the undaunted heavy cavalry unit. Lift your head. You don't need to apologize. It's just a small matter. Alaric stared deeply at him. Einar lifted his head, revealing a face that had weathered countless storms. Just like most veteran warriors, he also had numerous scars all over his body. This man was about as tall as Alaric. With tan skin and a muscular physique, he was brimming with raw physical strength. Out of habit, Alaric used his appraisal trait on him. Einar Berestein, Transcendent Knight EXP. 603/5000. Potential A. Traits: Horseback Riding, S. Shield Mastery, S. Swordsmanship, A. Hunting, A. Tracking, B. Close Combat, B. Archery, C. Indomitable, C. Strength, 290. Stamina, 210. Agility, 264. Vitality, 372. Endurance, 375. Mana, 290. Most of his attributes were quite lacking for a Transcendent Knight, but his vitality and endurance were nearing the highest levels. His strength was also above average. Overall, he was at a decent level physically. What made him special were his two serrated traits: Horseback Riding and Shield Mastery. Einar's defensive abilities were on par with Fredrin's in his past life. Thank you for your magnanimity, your highness. Einar gave him a snappy knight's salute. After a round of greetings, Lucas went straight to their objective. Where are the others? Hearing this, Einar replied. They are at the training ground, my lord. Would you like me to bring them here? Lucas raised his hand and shook his head. That is not necessary. We will go there ourselves. Lead the way. Einar nodded. Your servant obeys. Half an hour later, Einar brought them to a secluded property in the outer ring of the town. While following Einar inside the property, Alaric heard the fierce but synchronized shouting of men. Are they doing military drills? Alaric thought to himself when he heard the noise. He wasn't unfamiliar with the sound, since that was how warriors sounded during their military training. Soon they arrived at an open field where a group of warriors wearing steel armor were doing basic weapon training. Upon their arrival, the warriors were startled. They quickly stopped their training and bowed their heads. "Greetings, Lord Lucas." Lucas smiled faintly as he observed the diligent men. "Everyone, I came here to introduce you to the person that you will serve." After saying this, he beckoned to Alaric. Alaric walked towards his father upon seeing the signal. "This is my son Alaric Silversword, the heir of House Silversword and a prince of the Empire," Lucas proudly introduced. As soon as his words fell, the warriors in steel armor kneeled in unison and lowered their heads while saying, "We greet your highness." Alaric was feeling emotional. He could recognize their faces. So this is the undaunted heavy cavalry unit before the Civil War. They look younger than what I remember. What do you think, son? Are you satisfied with them? Lucas chuckled as he patted Alaric's back. Hearing his father's words, Alaric grinned. "This surprise is beyond my imagination, Dad." He truly didn't expect that the undaunted heavy cavalry unit was something that his father had prepared for him. This time these men wouldn't fight a meaningless battle. They wouldn't die undignified deaths and never will be without a proper identity. From now on they are my warriors. Alaric scanned the faces of the warriors standing before him. "I am Alaric Silversword. You will no longer remain hidden in this town. You will follow me into the big wide world and dominate the lands. Are you ready to serve me?" With his loud declaration, the warriors felt their hearts beating wildly in anticipation. It was the anticipation for their future together with their new lord. "We are ready to serve you, your highness." The warriors responded, their voices brimming with excitement and vigor. As their voices died down, Lucas approached his son and said, "We can't take these men without alerting the locals. We should speak with the officials first so that the residents wouldn't be alarmed. Moving an army of heavy cavalrymen would definitely attract attention, so they must inform the officials to prevent chaos in the town." Alaric understood this, so he nodded in agreement. "I will take care of this matter. You should stay here and familiarize yourself with them. I will leave Bastion here to help you," Lucas suggested. This army was composed of stubborn veteran warriors, so it was necessary for Alaric to establish a connection with them. "All right, take care." Alaric nodded. Lucas didn't stay and left in haste. "Just tell me what to do, your highness. I will help you discipline these men in no time," Bastion suddenly said with an amicable expression. Hearing this, Alaric smiled awkwardly. He still couldn't believe that this kind-looking old butler was the famous Black Knight in his past life. Chapter 399. Chieftain of the Black Eagle Tribe. Days passed by in a flash, and in the blink of an eye 3 days had gone by. At this very moment, Lucas and Alaric stood before 2,000 warriors in preparation for their trip to the Enchanted Woodlands. "Are you leaving now?" Maria asked while looking at her husband and son with concern. Jade Christine was similarly worried, but she managed to compose herself. Lucas held his wife's hands and smiled reassuringly at them. "The situation in the Elven Kingdom is quite urgent this time, so we can no longer afford to wait. We need to eliminate this threat as soon as possible since our presence will be needed in the coming attack on Haroun." Alaric chimed in with a stern look. Hearing his words, everyone nodded with grim faces. Hershey grabbed his hand and reminded him, "You must be careful out there." Looking at his wife's uneasy face, Alaric squeezed her hand and smiled. "I will be careful. Don't forget your meals, your highness." Elena's voice drifted into his ears. Turning his head, Alaric beckoned to Elena, gesturing for her to come closer. Seeing this, Elena walked towards him. "Elena, take care of Hershey while I'm gone. And you don't overwork yourself." Alaric patted her head. While he was giving them some reminders, a little girl suddenly came running towards them. "Uncle, are you leaving again?" Dudu asked while looking at Alaric with a reluctant gaze. Alaric chuckled as he rubbed the girl's head. "I have to go somewhere, Dudu. If you feel hungry, just look for these 2 older sisters. They will give you as much meat as you want." Dudu's face lit up upon hearing this. "Really? Of course. Alaric, you should bring these 2 with you. They will take care of your needs on your trip." Hershey brought 2 women to him. They were Matilda and Celine. Alaric understood his wife's intentions. He sighed and was about to say something, but Hershey put a finger to his lips, stopping him from saying anything. "Please, I should be the one to serve you, but the matters in the household cannot be left without my attention. You must take them with you." Seeing her determined expression, Alaric relented. "All right." He hugged his wife and gave her a kiss. After exchanging farewells, Lucas and Alaric departed with their troops. 1 week later, the group arrived at the outskirts of the Enchanted Woodlands. "Keep your eyes peeled," Lucas shouted to the troops. "We have already cleared most of these areas, but there are still some dangerous monsters that wander around." He warned them. "Yes, my lord." The warriors responded with grave faces. To some of them, it wasn't their first time coming to this place, so they were aware of the dangers in the forest. Lucas wasn't exaggerating. There were indeed times when powerful monsters would wander the outskirts. Everyone warily observed the surroundings as they walked deeper into the forest. Several hours later they finally reached the meetup zone where a group of elves were waiting for them. The two groups exchanged greetings briefly before the elves escorted them to the Greenwood Kingdom. With the elves leading the way, the group didn't encounter any beasts. In another few hours they finally saw the Elven Kingdom, which was now surrounded by thick vines that served as their walls. His Majesty decided to improve the kingdom's safety, so we added some necessary reinforcements to our defenses. These vine walls are the work of Elder Egres, proudly stated by one of the elven warriors escorting them. Alaric remembered the name. It was the obstinate high elf who was once against the alliance with House Silversword. Other than the vine walls, the Elven Kingdom was also equipped with ballistas and trebuchets which they got from House Silversword. Only Lord Lucas and your highness can enter past this area. As for your army, we will help them set up camp here. The leading escort elven warrior respectfully said. Lucas and Alaric weren't against the arrangements, so they agreed without complaint. On their way to the Elven King's treehouse, they saw a group of high elves approaching them. The one leading them was Garendel Greenwood, the current Elven King. It has been a while, your majesty. Lucas smiled as he shook hands with Garendel. I am glad to see you again, Lord Lucas. Garendel laughed heartily. The Elven King then moved his gaze to Alaric and grinned. How have you been, Alaric? I have been well, your majesty. Alaric lowered his head. After exchanging simple greetings, the Elven King took everyone inside his treehouse. Upon entering, they saw a group of barbarians discussing something with the Elven Princess Ivana Greenwood. Looking at Ivana's beautiful side profile, Alaric smiled. Ivana's shoulders trembled upon hearing his voice. She turned her head and looked at him, her gaze softening. Alaric, ahem. Garendel faked a cough and clapped his hands to gather everyone's attention. Everyone, we should introduce ourselves first before we begin with the meeting. Hearing his words, Alaric and Ivana reluctantly pulled their gazes away from each other. You two must be from House Silversword. The one who had spoken was a beautiful and slim barbarian woman with a pair of black wings on her back. I am Natalia, the current chieftain of the Black Eagle tribe. I have been meaning to meet you and express my gratitude for saving my daughter and the children of my fellow barbarians. She approached Lucas and Alaric with a friendly smile on her face. So it's Lady Natalia. It's our honor to meet you. Lucas extended his hand while greeting her. The honor is mine, Lord Lucas. Natalia shook hands with him before turning her gaze to Alaric. You must be Alaric Silversword. I've heard a lot about you from my daughter. Alaric humbly lowered his head. Greetings, Lady Natalia. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes. No. Alaric selected yes. Oh, her stats aren't that bad for a Transcendent Knight. Chapter 400. You lied to me. While Alaric was inspecting her stats, another barbarian chieftain approached them. It was a red-haired barbarian with a muscular physique. Seeing this man, Alaric thought about one of the barbarians they saved from the Crimson Tower incident. I am Common Dog. I also want to express my gratitude for saving my son. The red-haired barbarian was so tall that his head almost reached the ceiling. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Common Dog. Lucas shook hands with him. Oh please. I'm no lord. Just call me Common Dog. All right, if you insist. The rest of the barbarian chieftains also introduced themselves to Alaric and Lucas. After half an hour of introduction, everyone went to their assigned seats. Let us begin, Garendel said as he scanned the faces of everyone inside the treehouse. I have already informed you about the presence of the monster colony several hundred miles beyond our kingdom. We are planning to eliminate them, but we cannot defeat them without your assistance. He spoke in a grave tone. Why should we help you? The monster colony is far from our territories, so there is no merit for us to join this battle. One of the barbarian chieftains spoke up in a cold voice. Some of the chieftains nodded in agreement. The faces of the high elves darkened upon hearing this, making the atmosphere a bit more tense. I understand your point, but the barren lands are just right beside the enchanted woodlands. We can't say for sure that the monster colony wouldn't attack your territories. Garendel shook his head. The barbarian chieftains who were opposed to the idea frowned at his words. Garendel, we know that you are worried about your kingdom's safety, but we cannot send our men just because of a small chance that this monster colony would come out of the enchanted woodlands to attack our tribes. Another barbarian chieftain voiced his opposition. We are willing to compensate you. Garendel sighed in his heart. This isn't about compensation. All the beast soul crystals gained from the battle will be given to your tribes. We will also offer you spiritual fruits and elixirs. Garendel added decisively. He was ready to bleed his coffers to ensure the safety of his kingdom. With his firm persuasion, the barbarian chieftains were moved. All right, we will assist you, but if things get dangerous, we will retreat immediately. No problem. Everyone soon came to an agreement. After the meeting, Lucas grabbed Common Dog and asked, Where is Vulcan? Common Dog furrowed his eyebrows. Vulcan held an important position among the barbarian tribes. He was the right-hand man of the barbarian king, a peak transcendent knight. Why do you know that name? Commandog stared deeply at Lucas. Seeing his unfriendly gaze, Lucas explained himself. Relax. Vulcan is a friend of mine. If you know where he is, just send him my regards. Commandog's expression eased up. I see. I'm sorry for misunderstanding you. It's all right. Lucas waved his hand with a faint smile. He couldn't blame him for being suspicious. The barbarians had been repeatedly oppressed by the people of Estania. Although House Silversword had helped them, the barbarians couldn't change their opinions overnight. It would take time and effort before their perception of Estania would improve. The barbarian chieftains didn't linger for long after the discussion. They bid everyone farewell and hurriedly left. Looking at the disappearing figures of the barbarian chieftains, one of the high elves spoke. Can we really trust them? We have no choice. Whether they will help us or not will be up to fate. Garandel sighed while shaking his head. He was also feeling skeptical. After all, the elves and the barbarians didn't have a good relationship. They even had generational conflicts. At least we have House Silversword's support. Another high elf said with some relief. The others nodded in agreement. Ivana, why don't you chat with Alaric? I still have some things to discuss with Lord Lucas, so you should entertain him well. Hearing this, Ivana's heartbeat quickened, but she feigned calmness as she nodded her head. I understand. Seeing her acting like this, Garandel revealed a thoughtful smile. Lord Lucas, I have some things I wanted to clarify. Oh, is that so? After Lucas and Garandel left, the rest of the high elves dispersed, leaving Ivana and Alaric behind. The two stared at each other and smiled awkwardly. Follow me to my treehouse, Ivana said as she walked ahead. When she walked past him, she detected a faint scent on Alaric that made her scrunch her nose. The smell. All right. Alaric nodded and followed her. The two were silent for a long while before Alaric broke the silence. How have you been? Ivana paused her steps and looked at him as she replied in a cold voice. I always think of you, but it seems like you have already forgotten the promise you made. Alaric was baffled by her words. What do you mean? You have the scent of women on you. Ivana looked away from him and continued walking. Alaric's face fell at her words. He quickly sniffed his clothes, but he didn't smell anything unusual. Don't bother. Ivana sneered and quickened her pace. Seeing this, Alaric immediately matched her pace. Ivana, wait. He tried to speak with Ivana, but she didn't respond to him until they arrived in her treehouse. As soon as they entered, she locked her door and closed the windows. Alaric became nervous when he saw this. Suddenly, Ivana turned around, her gaze icy cold. I am already aware of your marriage to Hershey. I also know about that little maidservant of yours. I have no complaints about those two, but why do you have the scent of more women on you? This. Alaric wanted to explain himself, but he found himself unable to utter a word. In the end, it was his fault for betraying her trust. You lied to me. Ivana's voice trembled as tears threatened to burst out of her eyes. Alaric felt a pang in his heart. Ivana, don't touch me. Ivana shouted as she slapped his hand away from her. Alaric could only watch as she cried in front of him. Chapter 401. Hell. Alaric was at loss for words. He truly didn't do anything this time. He didn't even touch the two women sent by Hershey to serve him. Ivana, I didn't. He wanted to say that he didn't do it, but the words were stuck in his mouth. Ivana's face was cold. It was like the first time he had seen her during that cold, snowy night. My power amplifies my senses as long as trees or plants around me. You can't hide that disgusting stench from me. When she first met Alaric, his smell wasn't like this, but now she could smell the strong scent of blood on him. She could also detect the faint smell of women, which wouldn't be there unless there was close contact. You aren't the same man anymore, Alaric. Ivana muttered, her eyes shaking with anger and disappointment. Alaric grabbed his chest. Her words hurt him, but they were all true. He was no longer the same man he used to be. His expression suddenly became calm. You are right. It seems like I have become a different person. He strolled and pushed open the window and asked, What do you see outside? Ivana didn't respond, but she could see a group of elves doing their respective tasks. She also saw children playing by the river. While staring at the peaceful scenery, Alaric muttered, To bring this kind of peace to my family and my nation, I need power. Even if I turn into a demon in pursuit of this strength, I will not hesitate. He turned around and stared deeply into her eyes. Tell me, will you do the same for your kingdom? Ivana frowned and fell into deep thought. Would she be willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of their kingdom? While she was ruminating on his words, Alaric's voice drifted. If you see a future filled with bloodshed, your family and friends dying before you, your territory, your nation crumbling before you, if you see those things with your own eyes, you will understand my words. She was stunned. She looked at him and studied his expression. The look on his face, his eyes, and his temperament. Everything suddenly changed. It was no longer the kind-hearted and chivalrous man that she once knew, but a man with a scarred and torn heart. It was as if he had seen the end of the world. His tired, soulless eyes seemed to have witnessed the darkness and hell on earth. His expression wasn't an act. This emotion was something that he had left hidden in his heart. How can you show this kind of expression? Just what happened? She felt an inexplicable sense of sadness. Suddenly Alaric took off the bracelet given by his mother and placed it on the side table. I will leave this here. In the far future you can look at it and remember the good times you spent with a foolish man. It was one of his most important equipment, an item capable of giving its wearer a second life. However, Alaric was willing to give it to her as a farewell gift. After saying those words, he left the treehouse without looking back. Jerk. Ivana stared at the bracelet with tears running down her face. 3 weeks later, all the barbarian tribes who had decided to ally with the elves had already sent their troops to the Greenwood Kingdom. More than 100 barbarian tribes sent their soldiers. Each tribe sent about several hundred to a few thousand warriors. The total number of barbarian warriors gathered was around 170,000. In addition to the Elven Kingdom's troops and the warriors sent by House Silversword, they had around 200,000 warriors. At this moment, all these warriors had already gathered outside the Greenwood Kingdom in preparation to march towards the monster colony. With the number of troops we have, we can destroy that monster colony with ease. That's true. I thought this battle would be difficult, but it seems like it would be a breeze. We have Commander Vulcan on our side. We also have Lord Lucas, who is a mythical knight. Don't forget about that catastrophe-grade tamed beast. The warriors chatted among themselves while the military officers were discussing their final plans before the march. Riding on their horses, Lucas Garandel and a bald barbarian were talking about something else. Why do you think those two aren't talking with each other? Garandel asked, his voice filled with concern. Lucas let out a sigh as he responded. That I don't know. I tried asking my son, but he refused to tell me anything. The bald barbarian clicked his tongue as he said, just leave them be. Which one of us didn't experience the same thing during our youth? Back then I also quarreled a lot with my wife. Hearing this, Lucas and Garandel chuckled. I didn't know you could say something helpful, Vulcan. Lucas grinned while staring at his friend's face. Vulcan was a member of a barbarian tribe called the Scaled Arm Tribe. All the members of this tribe inherently have black scales on their arms. These scales were as tough as refined steel, and they could even withstand the pressure of mana. When they reach adulthood, their scales would be as durable and strong as relic-level weapons. Vulcan crossed his arms and snorted at his words. You can worry about your children after this battle ends. It's about time we march. Commander Vulcan is right. Garandel nodded in agreement, his expression slowly hardening. Then let's set off. Lucas nodded. After making this decision, Garandel sent a signal to the elven military officers as he instructed. Sound the horns. We are leaving. Braham. The army marched as soon as the war horns sounded. Meanwhile, Alaric, who was riding Zephyr, suddenly jolted. This mission. Defeat the monster colony. Mission difficulty. Hell. A monster colony has been established 300 miles from the Greenwood Kingdom. It is growing increasingly powerful as the days pass. The number of monsters in this colony is still growing by the day. Defeat the monster colony. Rewards: 6,500 battle points, 1,000 EXP, 250 stat points. Transcendent Knight card X1, Random Trait Upgrade card X2, SSS-Rank Trait card X1. Penalty for failure, death. Chapter 402. Sending a team to scout the colony. Alaric's face fell. The most difficult mission he had ever gotten was only extreme rated. He had never once received a hell rated mission. Even with the presence of Dad and Zephyr, the difficulty is still set to hell mode. What troubled him most was the reappearance of the death penalty upon failure. He thought that it wouldn't appear again, but here it was. Just what kind of creature is hiding in that monster colony? Should we abandon the mission? Sweat trickled down his face as he thought of countless scenarios. No, they won't believe me. I have no proof that a powerful creature is living in that place. Alaric frowned. I should try to warn them. Thinking about this, he instructed Zephyr to bring him to the front of the formation where Lucas and the commanders were located. Make way, he shouted to the warriors. Everyone gave way for them. No one dared to stop them from moving. Alaric, what are you doing here? Lucas frowned when he noticed his son approaching them. He was strict with military discipline, so he was a bit unhappy that Alaric left his assigned position. Seeing his father's displeased expression, Alaric saluted and said in a grim tone, My lord, I think we should send some scouts to properly investigate the monster colony. They had already sent teams to scout the periphery of the monster colony, but these teams didn't venture deeply. The information they had gathered might not be accurate, so Alaric was worried. We have already sent scouts to the colony to gather information, and the intel they sent back is mostly similar. Are you worried that there is something that they have missed? Lucas might be displeased, but he also trusted his son's instincts. Alaric nodded and expressed his thoughts. My lord, I have a bad feeling about this trip. I think it's best to send a stronger team to scout the colony. Lucas furrowed his eyebrows. He looked at Garandel and Vulcan, but both men didn't seem to have the intention of intervening. He let out a deep sigh and made his decision. Fine. You can select a maximum of 10 warriors to scout the colony. You can take your pick from anyone in the army. Hearing this, Alaric was relieved. As long as he could find proof that a terrible existence was there, they would be more prepared to face the monster colony. Thank you, my lord. He turned around and left to pick 10 warriors. Looking at his son's figure, Lucas rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Alaric rarely acts like this, and his instincts have never been wrong. We should be more cautious. Lucas and Vulcan nodded, their faces grave. They were aware that some gifted people had the ability to sense danger. They guessed that Alaric probably had this type of innate ability, so they didn't treat his words lightly. Being more cautious wouldn't do any harm. It might slow our march, but it is better to be safe. Vulcan said. That's true. It is possible that the scouts didn't discover everything about the colony. Garandel nodded with a frown. Information was crucial in war. A small error in information could lead to their downfall. It didn't take long for Alaric to pick the most suitable candidates. He had the appraisal trait, so he was able to discover which warriors were perfect to scout the enemy territory. In just a quarter of an hour, he selected 10 individuals from various groups, 7 from the barbarian tribes, 2 from the Elven Kingdom, and 1 from his troops. The warriors he selected were elite knights, and they all had agility attributes or speed-related traits. With their abilities, as long as they were careful, they would be able to escape any unexpected situation. The 10 of you will scout the monster colony. Your task is to gather information about the population of the colony. This is vital in the coming battle, so the information must be accurate. Also, I want you to check if there is a powerful creature hidden in the colony. Alaric announced the task of the chosen 10 warriors. Some of them furrowed their eyebrows, confused by his instructions. There were also a few who simply nodded without questioning the mission. Do you have any questions? Alaric scanned them one by one. Suddenly, one of them raised his hand and asked, Your Highness, who will lead the scout team? Everyone turned their gazes towards the owner of the voice. It was a barbarian warrior with nearly maxed agility. He also possessed an innate speed-related trait which made him the fastest among the 10. However, Alaric didn't hurry to make his decision. This scouting mission was dangerous, so he had to choose the best candidate to serve as the leader of the group. He inspected their attributes and traits one by one. Suddenly his gaze stopped on one of them. It was an elven warrior with green hair and a pair of bluish eyes. He was slim and tall with handsome facial features. What's your name? Alaric. Just call me Varus, your highness. The elven warrior responded with a polite bow. Alaric nodded. Varus here will be your team leader, so everyone must follow his commands during this reconnaissance mission. Everyone narrowed their eyes as they observed Varus from head to foot. They thought Alaric would choose the only human among them, but he chose a scrawny elf instead. They wondered why he made this decision. What was so special about this Varus guy? Alaric could see their skepticism, but he didn't bother to explain. He knew that Varus would show his abilities once the mission began. Remember, don't engage in battle unless absolutely necessary. Alaric warned. Rest assured, your highness. I will make sure that everyone returns unharmed. Varus promised. Alaric nodded, looking pleased by his words. All right, I will leave everything in your hands. You may go. Varus and the rest of the team saluted him before they went separately from the army. Looking at their disappearing figures, Alaric mumbled to himself. Quick thinking trait. That's quite rare. Chapter 403, Purple Mist Tree. Aldrin was one of the 10 warriors chosen to scout the monster colony. He had recently advanced to become an elite knight with the help of the near-limitless resources and rigorous training. Author's note. If you have forgotten about Aldrin, you can see him in the characters panel. Why did His Highness choose that elf to be our leader? Aldrin, curious, looked at Varus, the assigned leader of the 10-man scout team. From his observations, he wasn't the most physically gifted among them, nor the most charismatic. The one who stood out the most in their team was a barbarian with wolf-like features. He looked no different than a normal human, except that he had thick wolf fur on some parts of his body. He also possessed a pair of intimidating beastly eyes. Moreover, this barbarian warrior exuded the strongest aura among everyone in the team. Despite his confusion, Aldrin had full trust in Alaric's judgment. There must be something special about him. He thought to himself as he pulled his gaze from the elven warrior. This is no time to doubt my comrades. I should focus on the mission. Thinking about this, he carefully observed the surroundings for any possible threat. His sharp eyes roamed all over the place. When they traveled more than 50 miles, Varus instructed the team to get some rest. Their horses had been running at full speed, so the poor creatures were exhausted. It would be bad for the team if their mounts were in bad condition during the reconnaissance, so no one objected to Varys's decision. Throughout the whole trip, Aldrin kept his vigilance. He didn't even remove his hand from the handle of his spear. While they were setting up a temporary camp, someone suddenly approached him and said, "Relax, buddy. We are still far from the monster colony. You don't need to be so rigid." Aldrin turned his head. It was one of the barbarian warriors. Just like him, this guy was also an elite knight. Looking at the bow slung over his shoulder, Aldrin furrowed his eyebrows. Is the bow his primary weapon, or is it just a decoy? The barbarian warrior chuckled dryly when he noticed that Aldrin wasn't listening. He pointed at the insignia on Aldrin's chest and said, "You have that insignia, so you must be a warrior from House Silversword. I am Sandro, a member of the Green-eyed Falcon tribe." Though the human was quite peculiar, he had a good impression of House Silversword. Aldrin nodded and replied, "I am Aldrin." He wanted to introduce himself as a newly promoted team leader of House Silversword, but he didn't want to come off as a boastful guy, so he decided not to mention it. "I will call you Sir Aldrin if you don't mind." Sandro smiled faintly. Aldrin nodded to express his assent. "What are you two doing over there?" A stern voice suddenly drifted into their ears. It was another member of the scout team, the second elven warrior, Leslie. "It's nothing, Dame Leslie. I'm just making friends with our team members is all." Sandro laughed awkwardly. This elven warrior was the only woman in the group, but no one dared to underestimate her. This was because she possessed the second strongest aura after the barbarian with wolf features. Leslie stared deeply at them and instructed in a cold tone. "Instead of wasting time chatting, you two might as well check the perimeter." Hearing this, Sandro didn't hesitate for a second and acknowledged her command. "I understand." Aldrin was amused upon seeing him scurrying like a scared cat. "What a funny guy. What are you laughing about? You are not exempt from the task. Go and scout the area." Leslie's displeased voice echoed. Aldrin glanced at her and nodded. He then left without saying a word. So there are still arrogant elves like this woman. She seems to be the daughter of a high elf. No wonder she's got the temper. He didn't like Leslie's personality, but he still followed her instructions. It wouldn't be good for the team if he were to create conflict with the members. He climbed atop a massive tree and surveyed the surroundings with his keen perception. He found some monsters, but they weren't a threat to the group, so he decided to remain at the top of the tree to continue his observation. Suddenly he saw one of their members rushing back to the camp with an urgent expression. Sensing that something was amiss, Aldrin jumped down from the tree to inquire about the situation. "What did you see out there?" Varys asked the man, his expression serious. The man took a deep breath before he responded in a grim tone. "A monster outpost. I saw a monster outpost." Hearing his words, everyone frowned and quickly gathered around him. "Are you sure? Where did you see it?" someone inquired. The man pointed in a certain direction. "Half a mile from that location there is a big tree with strange purple fruits. The monster outpost is built on top of that tree." "Is he talking about the purple mist tree?" Leslie rubbed her chin while looking at Varys. "It must be the purple mist tree. It is the most conspicuous tree around here. The monsters must have chosen to build their outpost on top of it to keep an eye on its fruits." Varys agreed with her assessment. "What is this purple mist tree that you were talking about?" asked the barbarian warrior with wolf-like features. This man's name was Bane, and everyone believed that he was the strongest in the team. "I will explain it to you guys." Varys nodded and gave them a short introduction about the tree. According to him, the purple mist tree was a spiritual tree that produces an unusual elixir fruit, the purple mist fruit. When a peak knight apprentice consumed a mature purple mist fruit, they would immediately advance to become a knight. However, there was a problem. Each purple mist tree could only produce a maximum of 10 fruits every 10 years. "What? There's actually such a good thing here? Why didn't you guys send a team to safeguard the tree?" Everyone was confused. If it was so valuable, why did the Elven Kingdom not send its warriors to protect it? Looking at their baffled faces, Varys sighed and told them the truth. This area of the forest was originally the territory of a powerful monster pack. Their alpha was also a peak disaster-grade monster. "We did try to claim the tree, but the monster pack was fierce and they didn't fear death. After numerous losses, His Majesty decided to give up on the purple mist tree." While everyone was ruminating on his words, Varys added, "There is no need for us to attack the outpost. Our mission is to scout the monster colony, so we shouldn't sidetrack and do anything unnecessary." He paused for a moment and scanned everyone's faces before he continued. "We just need to avoid the outpost so we wouldn't be discovered." Bane stared deeply at him and nodded after a moment of silence. "Fine, but I will send word to the main army about the outpost." Varys wasn't opposed to this. He also planned on informing the main army about the outpost to prevent them from sending word to the monster colony. An undiscovered monster outpost 50 miles from the Elven Kingdom. It seems like the Elven Kingdom's worries weren't unfounded, thought Aldrin, who was listening to their conversation. With this discovery, the group no longer dawdled. They gathered their belongings and took a detour to avoid detection from the outpost. Bane also sent a messenger bird to inform the main army about what they had discovered. Back to the main army. Alaric received the letter sent by the scouting team. He unrolled the letter and read the contents with a stern look. Purple mist tree? Is there something like that here? He hadn't seen this tree before, but he had encountered its fruits at an auction in his past life. They were very rare, and it was almost impossible to artificially grow them. I wonder if I can transplant this tree into our garden? Alaric fell into deep thought. Attacking the monster outpost is a bit risky, but the tree is quite tempting. In the end, he decided to inform his father about the purple mist tree. He told Lucas about the story, but the guy didn't seem to be interested in it. To a mythical knight, this tree was indeed insignificant. My lord, we have plenty of talented knight apprentices in our household. If they can have this fruit, they will save a few years. Alaric tried to persuade his father. Lucas frowned and thought for a moment. Just like Alaric had said, House Silversword had plenty of promising knight apprentices. Given enough time, they would become the next batch of elites for the household. However, it would take years of training before they could advance and become a full-fledged knight. After much deliberation, Lucas relented. All right, I give you my permission, but who are you going to send this time? He asked while looking at his son. I will be going there myself. Alaric replied confidently. Chapter 404. The 11th Dark Purple Fruit. Alaric didn't bring Zephyr with him since it was too big and conspicuous. Instead, he rushed towards the location on foot. With his speed, he could even run faster than some disaster-grade beasts. No mission is notified this time. What a pity. He volunteered to take care of this task because he hoped to receive a mission from the system, but he didn't get any notification. A few hours later, Alaric finally saw the purple mist tree. He wasn't familiar with its appearance, but based on the description and illustrations written in books, he could tell that this was what he was looking for. Moreover, he also discovered the monster outpost built atop the branches of the tree. fr/EUEB/NOVEL.com. Hold on. I thought this tree could only produce 10 fruits every decade, then why is there an extra fruit? Alaric was confused. Hanging from one of the branches was a purple fruit which was significantly darker than the normal purple mist fruits. Furthermore, it was twice as big and it was wrapped in some kind of mana membrane. With one look, Alaric's instincts told him that this particular fruit was a treasure. Not bad. This trip is not wasted. As he moved closer to his target, Alaric removed all traces of his mana to prevent the monsters from discovering his presence. There are more monsters here than I thought, but the strongest is just an entry-level disaster-grade beast. We have plenty of warhorses that are stronger than it. He thought to himself as he stuck his body to a tree. There are about 50 fatal-grade orc warriors and 1 disaster-grade orc general. Alaric calmly assessed the enemy's strength and numbers while preparing his attack. Just as he was about to make his move, he saw the orc warriors dumping monster carcasses on the roots of the tree. What are they up to? Alaric was curious about their unusual actions. He decided to observe the situation. Why are they dumping monster corpses on? Just then, the roots of the tree suddenly moved like tentacles to grab the monster carcasses. The carcasses quickly shriveled up and were soon reduced to bones. Seeing this, Alaric was stunned. So they are using monster corpses to nourish the tree. Alaric had never heard of this nourishment method before. Much to his surprise, he could sense that the mana inside the fruits was getting increasingly dense. So the monster carcasses can speed up the nourishment of the purple mist fruits. Who would have thought that monsters would discover this unusual method? Alaric's eyes lit up with this discovery. It's about time. With quick ghost-like movements, he rushed towards the purple mist tree. He moved so fast that none of the orcs managed to detect his presence. Alaric targeted the orc warriors at the bottom of the tree. With a series of quick stabs, 10 orc warriors were killed. The purple mist tree seemed to have sensed their death and quickly grabbed their corpses. Alaric ignored this eerie scene and went to kill the remaining orcs. In just the blink of an eye, half of the orc warriors had already been killed. Their corpses weren't even spared and served as nourishment for the purple mist tree. When only a fourth of the orc warriors were left, the orc general finally sensed that something was amiss. It looked down from the outpost and saw Alaric killing its subordinates with ease. Enemy attack! The orc general shouted, its voice attracting the attention of the remaining orc warriors. Hearing this, Alaric clicked his tongue. TSK. Since he had already been discovered, he no longer decided to be discreet with his attacks. He jumped directly towards the monster outpost and began his carnage. It has been a while since I killed some orcs. His eyes turned red as he recalled the bad experiences he had with the orcs in his past life. Unknowingly, his ruthless slaughterer trait began to take effect. His physical strength was amplified, but negative thoughts also began to surface in his mind. I didn't notice it in the battle in Ackland Pass. But these negative emotions are increasing my desire to kill. It's controllable, but I shouldn't be reckless. In less than half a minute, all the orc warriors had been killed, leaving the orc general as the sole survivor. Human. Backing off, the orc general revealed a trace of fear. Alaric didn't give it a chance to escape and swiftly cut off its head with a single slash. Whoosh! The orc general's headless corpse fell to the ground and was sucked dry by the roots of the purple mist tree. After killing all the orcs, the negative thoughts in his mind gradually vanished. Alaric lifted his head and looked at the dark purple fruit. This one is still not mature, so I should cover it with leaves so others won't notice it. Alaric covered the fruit in thick leaves. That should do it. Once the war is over, I will bring a researcher to inspect this fruit. Alaric observed the vicinity. After ascertaining that there was no one nearby, he left and rushed back to the main army. Meanwhile, the 10-man scout team had already traveled more than 90 miles. Along the way, they encountered 3 undiscovered monster outposts, which they reported back to the main army. We aren't even in the 100-mile mark, but we have already found 3 undiscovered monster outposts. It looks like His Highness Alaric's intuition was right. Someone said in a grave tone. Keep quiet. There are enemies ahead. Bane warned the group, his face looking incredibly serious. Sir Bane, how many enemies can you see and how strong are they? Varys asked while looking at the barbarian warrior. While keeping his eyes in front, Bane responded. There are 60 goblin warriors, 10 hobgoblins, and they also have a disaster-grade goblin chieftain. Hearing this, Varys frowned. Defeating them isn't a problem, but it wouldn't be good if the colony discovered us this early. We need to make a detour. It's too late. They have already discovered us. Chapter 405. Slaying the Goblins. Hearing his words, Varys didn't hesitate and quickly unsheathed his sword as he shouted. Let's kill them quickly. Don't let them send a message back to the colony. The scout team grabbed their weapons and urged their horses to speed up. Hiya! Bane took the foremost position while grabbing the longsword strapped on his back. Meanwhile, Leslie and 2 more archers in the group released their arrows upon the goblins. Sue! 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 All their arrows hit their targets, but only Leslie managed to kill a goblin warrior with a direct hit to the head. After releasing a few more arrows, 10 goblins fell, half of which were taken down by Leslie on her own. At this moment, the 2 sides collided. With a grunt, Bane waved his longsword, slicing through the bodies of the goblin warriors. With a single slash, he killed 3 goblins. The rest of the scout team didn't want to be outdone. They brandished their weapons, killing goblins left and right. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 goblin warriors fell, leaving only half of them alive. At this moment, Aldrin was closely following behind Bane, providing him with timely support when necessary. With them leading the group, another 10 goblins were killed. Leslie had also shot a hobgoblin to death. In no time, only the goblin chieftain, 4 hobgoblins, and a few goblin warriors remained. The rest had already been killed, their corpses scattered all over the place. You 2, follow me to deal with the goblin chieftain. The rest of you kill the remaining enemies. Varys suddenly appeared out of nowhere, signaling to Bane and Aldrin to follow him. Seeing this, Aldrin and Bane quickly followed him. They squeezed their legs and urged their horses to move faster. With their mounts quick galloping, they soon arrived in front of the goblin chieftain. The monster seemed to be enraged. While roaring furiously, it wildly brandished its weapon, a giant club filled with spikes. Whoosh! Whoosh! Facing its relentless attacks, the 3 warriors maneuvered their horses to evade, skillfully displaying their horse-riding skills. When the monster was within his sword's range, Varys launched a blow to its neck with great precision. Whoosh! SHCKK. His sword stabbed into its neck and pierced deeply, making the monster grimace in pain. However, it had high vitality, so it didn't die immediately. With a swipe of its muscular arm, it struck Varys heavily, making the elven warrior fall from his horse. Varys! Aldrin shouted in alarm. I'm fine. Kill it. Quick! Varys shouted as he lifted his body, grimacing. Seeing that he wasn't in critical condition, Bane and Aldrin flanked the goblin chieftain, attacking it simultaneously. With a sword stuck in its throat, the goblin chieftain's movements were awkward. It tried to defend itself against their attacks, but it was no longer in peak condition. In just a few breaths, it received multiple slashes and stabs, leaving deep wounds on its body. With one final struggle, it targeted Aldrin in an attempt to take him down with it. However, Aldrin was quick on his feet. With nimble movements, he managed to evade the monster's spiked club. Now exhausted and close to death, the goblin chieftain's movement was getting slower. It was breathing heavily, its neck bleeding profusely. Out of nowhere, Bane appeared behind the goblin chieftain and sliced off its head with a slash. Whoosh! The goblin chieftain's body collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. How is everyone? Varys scanned his teammates. A few of them had minor wounds, but no one was severely wounded. This made him feel relieved. Everyone is fine. What about you? Bane approached him and scanned the elven warrior from head to foot. Varys waved his hand while shaking his head. I'm fine. Just a bruise on my chest, but it's nothing serious. Hearing this, Bane nodded his head. Approaching them on horseback, Leslie asked. The corpses will definitely attract attention. What should we do with them? Everyone moved their gazes to Varys. He was the leader of the team, so the decision was in his hands. Varys thought for a moment before he replied. Burning their bodies might cause a forest fire, so let's just dump them somewhere unnoticeable. Doing this was also risky, but it was better than having a forest fire. Upon hearing his words, everyone immediately gathered the corpses and carried them to a hidden place. After dealing with the corpses, the group resumed their journey. This time they were more careful. To avoid another monster team, Varys told the group to be more vigilant. With everyone maintaining a state of high vigilance, they managed to bypass a few monster teams without being caught. A few hours later, they were about to reach the halfway mark. However, the group discovered some crude traps that slowed them down. Be careful. There are traps everywhere. Varys alerted the team. Leslie sent a message to the main army and informed them about the traps. He instructed. I got it. Leslie nodded and immediately summoned a messenger bird with a nearly inaudible whistling sound. While they were dismantling the traps, Bane, who was observing the vicinity, suddenly sensed the presence of an incoming monster team. freewe.novel.com. Enemies are coming. Hide all of you, he shouted. Luckily for them, the bushes in the forest were tall enough to hide them and their horses. The grass could also mask the sound of their footsteps. A moment later, 10 monsters came into their view. Ogres. Everyone was alarmed when they saw the towering figures of the beasts. Moreover, these ogres were disaster-grade beasts. While keeping an eye on the approaching ogres, Aldrin rubbed his horse's back to calm it down. Relax. I'm here, he whispered. The others were also comforting their restless horses. Meanwhile, Varys was analyzing the situation. Both groups are equal in strength and numbers, so there might be casualties if we fight them. We can only hope that they still haven't discovered us so we can ambush them. Thinking about this, he sent a series of hand signals to the team. Chapter 406. Varys is unsatisfied with the results. Unlike other disaster-grade monsters, ogres were innately bloodthirsty and cruel. They devour their prey skin and bones to increase their strength. With their towering bodies and muscular physiques, even a skilled elite knight would have to run upon seeing them. Not to mention that there were 10 such merciless beasts approaching them. As the ogres walked towards them, everyone in the scout team tightened their grip on their weapons, ready to attack at any moment. At this moment, Varys sent a hand signal to Leslie. Seeing his signal, Leslie imbued mana into her arrows while aiming at one of the ogres. When her arrow was close to absorbing the maximum amount of mana it could absorb, she suddenly released it with fearsome power and precision. Sue traveled so fast that it tore through the air. Her arrow violently struck an ogre's head, causing it to burst like a smashed watermelon. CHK. The monster's corpse fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Startled, some ogres took cover behind the trees while the others rushed towards where the arrow had been released. Leslie was playing a big role this time, acting as the bait, but she also faced significant danger. In the face of the approaching beasts, she felt a wave of fear, but she tried to put on a calm facade. She didn't want her teammates to think that she was afraid. Her pride as the daughter of a high elf didn't allow her to let anyone witness such embarrassing behavior. Everyone nervously waited for Varys' signal. For this ambush to work, they must be perfectly synchronized in their attacks. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to deal much damage to the ogres. Varys felt a great deal of pressure, but his mind was unnaturally calm. Just when the ogres were about to surround Leslie, he opened his mouth and shouted, "Attack!" Hearing his words, everyone quickly took action. They flanked the ogres from left to right, attacking them from both sides. The unexpected appearance of more human warriors caught the ogres by surprise. They were unable to react in time, with some of them receiving critical wounds. However, only 3 ogres were successfully taken down. The remaining 6 managed to counterattack and pushed back the scouting team with pure aggression. Spread out and attack them in different directions. Leslie, take another shot. Varys issued a series of commands. With his quick and timely instructions, the team was able to coordinate their attacks. While the rest of the team was pulling the ogre's attention, Leslie quietly aimed her bow towards her next target. She gathered the mana in her body and imbued it into her arrow. Only an arrow powered by mana could penetrate the body of a disaster-grade monster. Leslie's face turned pale as she released her arrow. Sue! In the next moment, another ogre was killed with a huge gaping hole in its chest. The death of another ogre made its remaining brethren enraged. They roared furiously while swinging their weapons with ferocious force. Bang! Bang! One member of the scouting team was struck by a giant sledgehammer. His helmet was deformed and his head cracked open from the impact. The poor fellow fell from his horse, his fate unknown. Everyone saw this, but they couldn't afford to be distracted. Let them exhaust themselves. Try to preserve your mana. Varys reminded the team, his face grim. One slight mistake and one of them might be killed. The ogres were like frenzied beasts. Despite the injuries that had accumulated in their bodies, their movements didn't seem to have slowed down. Instead, they had become more aggressive. Buy me some time. I can release one more of those mana-imbued arrows. Leslie shouted while popping a recovery elixir into her mouth. Bane, Aldrin, follow me. We will kill one. The rest of you try to hold down the remaining 4. Varys's words drifted into their ears. They were stunned by his commands, but they still moved accordingly. We must kill another one as quickly as possible, Varys thought as he urged his horse to charge towards one of the ogres. Bane and Aldrin closely followed him, flanking him from either side. I will take the front. Attack it from both sides, Varys instructed while keeping his eyes on their target. As soon as his words fell, he maneuvered his horse to leap forward while brandishing his sword. Meanwhile, Bane and Aldrin attacked the ogre from different directions. The ogre's focus was entirely on Varys, so it failed to detect the other 2. It blocked Varys' attack, but Bane and Aldrin managed to leave deep wounds upon its body. The beast staggered at the critical blows, and Varys took this chance to deliver a slash towards its neck. Whoosh! His sword left a trail of blood as it cut off the beast's head. After killing the monster, Varys pulled the reins, forcing his horse to turn in another direction. He then pointed his sword at another target and shouted, "The battle is not over. Let's go and help the others." Hiya! The 5 guys who were holding down the 4 ogres were already in a desperate situation. One of the warriors even had an arm cut off, while the rest also had varying degrees of injuries. It's ready. Move out of the way. Leslie's voice fell into their ears. Sue. Her arrow shot towards an ogre, but this time the monster managed to twist its body to avoid a critical hit. However, the arrow still pierced through its leg, leaving a bloody hole that significantly impeded its movements. I missed. Leslie's face fell upon missing her intended target. She aimed for the ogre's chest, but the monster was quick enough to evade the fatal blow. I will deal with it. You guys kill the remaining 3. Without waiting for their response, Bane rushed towards the injured ogre. It's already severely injured. I can handle this much. With a snort, he brandished his weapon with pinpoint accuracy. His sword was so fast that each of his slashes left afterimages in the air. Whoosh! Whoosh! SHCKK. SHHK. The crippled ogre couldn't properly defend itself. Against Bane's fearsome attacks, it slowly succumbed to its injuries and fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. Looking at the fallen monster, Bane unhesitatingly stabbed its neck and twisted his sword. SHHK. The remaining ogres were soon dealt with under the relentless attack of the team. The monsters fell one by one, their towering bodies collapsing to the ground. We did it, but Varys was unhappy with the results. One of them was killed and another one had his arm cut off. To some it might be a great victory, but he couldn't accept such results. It's my fault. There could have been another way to prevent casualties. He gritted his teeth while looking at their fallen comrade's body. It's not your fault. He felt a hand pressing on his shoulder, making him feel a bit surprised. He turned his head and saw Bane giving him a comforting glance. No, Varys didn't agree with him. I am the leader of this team. Everyone's life is my responsibility and his death is my fault. Bane sighed while shaking his head. This guy was more stubborn than he had thought. He jumped off his horse and covered the dead warrior's body with leaves and grass. This man joined this battle knowing that death may come for him. For us barbarians, dying in battle is a glorious moment. You don't need to feel pity for him. He died a warrior's way. Hearing Bane's words, everyone felt a wave of emotion. Aldrin put his hands together and prayed for the warrior's soul. The rest of the team also offered their solemn prayers. After a few minutes, Bane jumped onto his horse and said, "Let's go. Our task is not done. We can't stay here forever." He then moved his gaze towards the warrior who had his arm cut off and asked, "Are you coming with us?" The man hesitated for a moment before he replied with a nod. "I will not slow you down." "Good." Bane nodded. He then looked at Varys as if waiting for him to say something. Sensing his gaze, Varys took a deep breath and said, "I will give you 2 minutes to dress your wounds and mask the smell of blood." Everyone quickly bandaged their wounds. To mask the scent of blood on their bodies, they smeared their skin with ground grass and herb paste. When they were about to leave, Leslie looked at Bane and asked, "What about his body? Are we leaving him here?" Bane stared deeply at her and replied, "His body will become nourishment to the plants. Even if he is eaten by beasts, it doesn't matter." Leslie didn't like it, but seeing that the barbarian warriors didn't seem to mind the arrangement, she no longer said anything. "If there's nothing else, let's move out," Varys commanded. Chapter 407. Varys's Risky Plan. The scout team resumed its journey towards the monster colony. They hadn't even arrived at their destination, but they had already lost one of their teammates, so morale was low. The mood was grim, and no one was even in the mood for casual conversations. The next day, the team finally arrived at the monster colony. It was located in what seemed to be a deep mining cave with numerous complex entrances. They could see a large group of monsters stationed at the mouth of this complex cave. There were goblin warriors, orc warriors, and ogres. Surprisingly, they also discovered other types of monsters like kobolds, reptilian bipedal monsters with dragon-like heads. Are kobolds included in the previous reports? Aldrin glanced at Varys with an inquisitive look. The elven warrior shook his head, his face looking incredibly serious. No, the kobolds might have recently surrendered to the colony. Look over there. He pointed at a group of kobolds. Everyone turned their heads and saw a group of kobolds doing hard labor. Some of them were chained and they were even being whipped by other monsters. From the looks of it, the kobolds should have the lowest status in the colony. This was only Varys's guess based on what he was seeing, but everyone agreed with his assessment. Aldrin was impressed by his quick judgment. They hadn't even been here for long, but he had already discovered many important details that others would have overlooked. Other than his ability to command, he is also very observant. Now I understand why His Highness chose this man as our team leader. Aldrin was once again impressed by Alaric's discerning eyes. In just a short time, he was able to choose the perfect person to lead the scouting team. What should we do next? Bane asked while keeping his eyes on the monsters. There might be more things we don't know about the colony, but we need to go inside to gather more information. Varys responded with a heavy expression. Hearing this, everyone's face darkened. Entering this complex cave system would be difficult with so many monsters guarding the entrances. Moreover, they don't have a map to guide them around the complicated tunnels. After a moment of silence, Varys gestured for everyone to come closer as he whispered. The rest of you should return and inform the main army about what we have seen here. The kobolds, the complex cave system, the maze-like tunnels. Everything we saw here must be reported to the main army. What about you? Leslie asked with a frown. Varys took a deep breath and replied with a determined look. I will go inside and have a look. Everyone was stunned by his words. This was no different than blindly entering the lion's den. Are you crazy? How are you going to get in there with all those monsters around? It's too dangerous. I don't agree with this plan. Leslie shook her head. She is right, Varys. It is too dangerous for you to go alone. It would be better if I followed you inside. That way we can help each other out in case something happens. Bane voiced his opinion with a grim smile. Leslie was exasperated. She thought that Bane was also against the plan, but he actually wanted to follow Varys inside the monster colony. You must be insane. Leslie scowled while shaking her head. If you two are going, then count me in as well. Aldrin expressed his desire to follow. He felt that they hadn't gathered enough information, so he wanted to go inside the colony to obtain more intel to help the main army and his lord. Are you guys tired of living? Leslie face-bombed at their recklessness. Varys nodded resolutely. Then it's decided. The three of us will head inside the colony while the rest of you will return to the main army to report what we have seen. Another guy wanted to join them, but Varys rejected him. Moving with 4 people will be a lot more difficult. The 3 of us should be enough. That way we can move around without alerting those monsters. And how do you plan on doing that? Can't you see those monsters there? You 3 will be discovered immediately once you step in there. Leslie was still against the plan. She didn't want them to go through such a risk. About that, I already have a plan. Please trust me, Leslie. Varys stared deeply at her, his eyes filled with confidence. Leslie sighed. Fine, but you must retreat immediately once things go south. We will be careful. Varys nodded. The group separated after exchanging solemn goodbyes. After Leslie left with the other members, only Varys, Bane, and Aldrin were left behind. How are we going to do this? Aldrin inquired. Bane also glanced at Varys, waiting for his response. Do you see those monsters wearing armor? Varys pointed at another group of monsters. The two followed his gaze and saw a group of humanoid monsters dressed like human warriors. Those people must be half-barbarians. We will kill 3 of them, steal their equipment, and go in using their identities. While mentioning this, he observed Bane's expression. F_RE. U.B no /Velcom. Their target was a group of half-barbarians, so he wanted to know if he was uncomfortable with the idea. Why are you looking at me like that? Bane could tell what was on his mind. You don't need to worry about my feelings. They might possess our bloodline, but since they stand with the monsters, they are our enemies. Bane muttered coldly. Hearing this, Varys was relieved. Good. Then let's go and lure those guys out. Aldrin and Bane nodded solemnly. A moment later, the trio crept closer to the colony. They moved carefully to avoid being detected by the monsters. Varys suddenly threw something to attract the attention of their targets. What's that? The half-barbarians heard the noise, and a small group volunteered to check the situation. Seeing this, Varys gestured at the other 2 to keep quiet and wait for his signal. Chapter 408. Storage Cavern. 5 half-barbarians warily approached the direction of the sound, but when they arrived, there was nothing unusual. False alarm. It's probably just a stray animal or something. One of them chuckled while shaking his head. The group was about to return when 3 figures suddenly emerged behind them. In the blink of an eye, all 5 of them were killed. They didn't even know how they died. Get their equipment. Make sure that your faces are covered. Those were the last words they heard before they closed their eyes for eternity. After putting on the armor of the half-barbarians, the trio headed straight to the colony. Just walk calmly and don't do anything that would make them suspicious. If someone comes to question us, let me do the talking, Varys said as he led them towards the complex cave entrances. Just as they were about to head inside one of the entrances, a deep voice echoed behind them. Hold on. Aldrin and Bane subconsciously grabbed the handles of their weapons, but Varys quickly motioned for them to keep calm. Varys turned around and looked at the one who had spoken. It was another half-barbarian with orc features. I don't recognize you 3. Who is your chieftain? Brother, we know the rules. Just pretend you didn't see us this time. Please do us this favor. We will cover your shift tomorrow. Varys answered without stuttering. The half-barbarian narrowed his eyes. What's your name? I'm Bane. What is your name, brother? Varys gave the first name that came to his mind. /N-O-V.E/L.com. The half-barbarian didn't respond for some time, but his expression gradually loosened and bloomed into a relaxed smile. All right. I will remember your words, Bane. I'm called Rugal. You better not go back on your words or I'll come looking for you. Haha. Rest assured, Rugal. I will find you tomorrow. Looking at Varys freely conversing with an enemy made Aldrin and Bane genuinely impressed. This guy was slick with his words. A moment later, the half-barbarian finally let them leave. That was close. Varys let out a nervous chuckle. You did well. Aldrin praised while smiling beneath his mask. Bane also gave him a thumbs up. Varys shook his head. Enough with the idle chatter. It's time to go. The trio entered one of the cave entrances. The path was a narrow tunnel illuminated by crudely made torches. They encountered some monsters along the way, but they acted calmly and just walked straight without speaking. When there was no one nearby, Bane whispered, "This tunnel is like a maze. I have already forgotten which way we came from. It's fine. The route is inside my head," responded Varys while pointing his head. Hearing this, Bane no longer said anything. As they headed deeper, the tunnel became even more crowded with more monsters passing by. To avoid attracting attention, the trio chose to follow a large crowd that they heard was heading towards a place they called the storage. From the bits and pieces of information they heard, Varys guessed that this place was probably where the colony stored its food reserves. I think we are on to something really important, he thought to himself, anticipation and a trace of nervousness brewing in his heart. After a quarter of an hour, they emerged to a spacious cavern filled with all sorts of preserved food and resources like drinkable water. There were monster workers inside the cavern monitoring the resources with unblinking eyes. There were also monster warriors eyeing everyone that entered with stern gazes. Varys, we should leave now. Discovering this storage cavern should be enough to help the main army, Bane whispered. There were more monster warriors around, so the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous for them. One wrong move and their cover would be blown. Aldrin didn't say anything, but he agreed with Bane's words. They could use the knowledge about this cavern to sabotage the food supply of the monster colony. Doing this would definitely cause chaos and make the monsters panic. Varys didn't respond right away. He discreetly observed the cavern and the monster warriors. We will burn this place, he suddenly said, his words shocking his 2 companions. What? Bane stared at him in disbelief. That is too dangerous. The exit might be blocked if we cause a commotion here. That would leave us no room to escape. Aldrin chimed in, expressing his opposition to the plan. I know, but trust me on this. I have a plan. Varys didn't want to give up. Aldrin and Bane hesitated for a moment, but they eventually relented under his persuasion. Fine. Let's do it. Dying like this wouldn't be too bad. At least we can do something big to guarantee our victory in the war. Bane forced a smile. Do I still have a choice? Aldrin shook his head with a defeated expression. Varys grinned. Don't worry. No matter what happens, I won't let you 2 die. View the correct content at free.webnovel.com. Meanwhile, Leslie's team of 6 was on their way to regroup with the main army when one of them discovered that they were being followed. Someone's on us, Sandro shouted. Author's note. See Chapter 403 for reference. Sandro is a barbarian warrior from the Greeneed Falcon tribe. His words made everyone alarmed. What? Leslie's face fell. She didn't sense anyone's presence, but when she focused on her auditory senses, she finally heard the distant galloping of horses. Enemies are behind us, she shouted. What should we do, Dame Leslie? Someone asked, looking incredibly pale-faced. Everyone turned their heads to her. Leslie furrowed her eyebrows and replied, Our horses have been running for hours. Those guys will catch up soon. We need to slow them down. With a resolute gaze she said, I will lure them away. You guys should move separately to increase your chances of escaping. Once you find the main army, report everything we discovered without missing a detail. Everyone was stunned. No, Dame Leslie. Leave this task to me. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.